In the ancient and savage wilderness of Europe, long before the rise of modern man, there lived a race of primitive men, bestial in form but mighty in stature, who roamed the lands as both hunters and the hunted. In the days of Neanderthal man, the land was a vast and untamed wilderness, stretching endlessly beneath the pale sun. Europe was a primeval land where wild beasts roamed and the forests grew dense and dark. The great beasts of the Pleistocene epoch were the constant companions of Neanderthal hunters. To walk the land as a hunter was to confront death at every turn, for there was no safety, no refuge from the dangers of the natural world. For over 300,000 years, the Neanderthals inhabited much of Europe and Western Asia. They left a trail of genetic clues that have captivated modern scientists. The Neanderthals are among our closest human relatives. Imagine a Europe 50,000 years ago, shrouded in Ice Age chill, where two groups of Neanderthals roamed the same lands yet lived worlds apart. What if these groups were so distinct that they deserved to be categorized as separate subspecies? The discovery of a Neanderthal from Grotte Mandrin in France has sparked a radical rethinking of Neanderthal diversity just as they faced extinction. Could this lineage represent an archaic, isolated remnant, while the classic Neanderthals we know so well were a hybrid swarm, mingling with modern humans? Let's dive into this prehistoric puzzle, arguing that there were indeed two Neanderthal subspecies, the classic Neanderthals and an archaic lineage, and explore how applying a stringent species model backs this up, revealing a tale of isolation, hybridization, and perhaps even ancient rivalries. Who was this archaic Neanderthal, and why does he matter? Unearthed in the Rhone Valley, he lived between 42,000 and 50,000 years ago, possibly one of the last Neanderthals left standing. His genome, decoded in 2024 from a molar root, tells a story of startling isolation. His lineage split from other Neanderthals around 105,000 years ago and stayed genetically separate for 50,000 years, despite living just 50 kilometers from other Neanderthal sites. This isn't a minor family feud, it's a chasm suggesting two distinct populations coexisted in late Ice Age Europe. The classic Neanderthals, found across sites from Belgium to the Middle East, form a familiar picture. Robust, big-brained, tool-savvy survivors. But this Grotte Mandrin group, they're an enigma, a smaller, inbred clan clinging to an older way of life. What sets these two groups apart? Grotte Mandrin. DNA shows high homozygosity, identical gene variants pointing to inbreeding, and no trace of mixing with their neighbours or incoming Homo sapiens. Contrast this with the classic Neanderthals, whose genomes from Vindiger Cave or Spy Cave reveal a broader, interconnected population with signs of gene flow among themselves, and crucially, with modern humans between 47,000 and 65,000 years ago. Grotte Mandrin tools, tied to the Neronian tradition, differ from the Chattelperronian tools of the classic Neanderthals, hinting at cultural divergence too. Were these groups so different that they represent separate evolutionary paths within the Neanderthal lineage? To argue for a subspecies, we need a clear yardstick. Enter Chris Stringer, a titan of paleoanthropology at the British Natural History Museum, whose separate species model offers a rigorous framework. Stringer's approach emphasizes reproductive isolation and consistent morphological or genetic differences to distinguish species, or in this case, subspecies within a species like Homo neanderthalensis. If two populations diverge long enough without interbreeding and develop distinct traits, they earn subspecies status. Can Grotte Mandrin's lineage pass this stringent test? Let's start with isolation. The Grotte Mandrin group didn't mix with the classic Neanderthals for 50,000 years, a span longer than fully modern humans have existed as a species. Living cheek by jowl in southern France, yet genetically apart, suggests powerful barriers, social, ecological, or even biological. Compare this to the classic Neanderthals, who formed a meta-population stretching across Europe, sharing genes and ideas. The Grotte Mandrin isolation isn't just a quirk, it's a hallmark of a separate lineage, ticking Stringer's first box. What about distinct traits? Genetically, Grotte Mandrin's high levels of inbreeding contrasts with the classic's diversity. However, morphologically we're on shakier ground. The Grotte Mandrin remains, a jaw and teeth, don't scream different species from classic Neanderthal bones. But subtle clues, like his lineage's possible ties to earlier, more archaic Neanderthals from Gibraltar, suggest a retained ruggedness, perhaps less refined skulls or bodies, versus the classic slightly more modern features, possibly softened by interbreeding with modern humans. Tool traditions reinforce this. Neronian versus Chattelperonian points to lifestyles drifting apart. Stringer's model doesn't demand huge physical gaps for subspecies, just consistent divergence. The Grotte Mandrin group fits the bill. Now let's flip the script. What if the classic Neanderthals weren't pure Neanderthals, but a hybrid group shaped by Homo sapiens? The evidence is tantalizing. Genomes from Vindiger, El Sidron, and other late classic Neanderthals show introgression, modern human DNA woven into their fabric, dated to 47,000 to 65,000 years ago. This wasn't a one-off fling. It's a pattern across Europe, suggesting regular interbreeding as modern humans spread west. The Grotte Mandrin lineage, meanwhile, shows no such modern human influence. This DNA is 100% pristine Neanderthal, untouched by sapiens genes. Why does this matter? Hybridization could explain the classic Neanderthals' wider range and adaptability. Interbreeding might have boosted their numbers or resilience, blending modern human traits, perhaps a touch of our cranial globularity or social flexibility, into their robust frames. The Grotte Mandrin group, isolated and inbred, missed this genetic lifeline. Their small population size, maybe only hundreds, and lack of diversity could have doomed them as climates harshened and modern humans encroached. If the classic Neanderthals were hybrids, they weren't just Neanderthals, they were a bridge species, a mosaic of two worlds. So who were the Grotte Mandrin Neanderthals? Picture a relic population, a throwback to Neanderthals of 100,000 years ago, hunkered down in southern refuges like the Rhone Valley or Gibraltar. Their DNA ties this lineage to Nana from Gibraltar 1,900 kilometers away, hinting at a once wider Mediterranean range that shrank as classic Neanderthals and modern humans dominated. These archaic Neanderthals clung to older ways. Neronian tools lacked the finesse of Chattelperonian blades, suggesting less innovation. Were they the last of an ancient stock, outpaced by their hybridized cousins? Their isolation paints a grim picture. High levels of homozygosity means a tiny gene pool, maybe a few families inbreeding for generations. This isn't just genetic trivia, it's a survival handicap. Small populations falter against disease, infertility, or environmental shocks. The Grotte Mandrin tribe lived through cold Heinrich events, yet their tools and genes stayed static. Did they lack the flexibility to adapt, unlike the classics who borrowed from modern humans? Let's test this with Stringer's model. Reproductive isolation? Check. 50,000 years without gene flow despite proximity is a slam dunk. Distinct traits? Check. Genetic isolation, cultural quirks, and possibly archaic morphology set the Grotte Mandrin tribe group apart. The classic Neanderthals, with modern human DNA and broader networks, diverge in their own direction. Stringer might argue full species status needs bigger gaps, but subspecies fits here. Two lineages under the Neanderthal umbrella, we might label them as Homo neanderthalensis europaeus and Homo neanderthalensis thurini, diverging yet related species. This fits with Stringer's view of the Neanderthals as a separate species, while many others believe them to be a subspecies of Homo sapiens. Could these two subspecies interbreed if they wanted to? Neanderthals and modern humans interbred, so biological barriers between these groups seem unlikely. But 50,000 years of separation might have bred behavioral walls, different languages, rituals, or territories keeping them apart. The Grotte Mandrin group shows no classic Neanderthal DNA and vice versa. Was this choice or chance? Either way, Stringer's model supports subspecies status. Long-term isolation plus distinct identity equals a taxonomic split. The inner ear structure of Neanderthals offers another fascinating clue that could tie into the argument for two distinct subspecies, Grotte Mandrin's archaic lineage and the classic Neanderthals, especially in light of recent research. In the laboratory, scientists recently analyzed the bony labyrinth, the inner ear's intricate structure. in Neanderthals and found a unique feature. Their eustachian tube angle remained flat into adulthood, unlike modern humans, where it shifts to a sharper angle after infancy. This flat angle, linked to a higher risk of ear infections, might signal a genetic bottleneck, a period of reduced diversity that locked in this trait. For Grotte Mandrin's lineage, already shown to be highly inbred with a tiny population, this inner ear quirk could reflect their isolation and archaic roots, amplifying vulnerabilities that set them apart from the more robust, classic Neanderthals. How does this fit the subspecies narrative? The classic Neanderthals, with their broader gene pool and evidence of interbreeding with Homo sapiens, might have had a slightly less pronounced version of this trait, or even begun to shift it, thanks to modern human genetic input, which often brings greater adaptability. The Grotte Mandrin group, genetically stagnant for 50,000 years, likely retained this flat eustachian tube as a marker of their ancient lineage, a relic of a bottleneck that predates their divergence 105,000 years ago. If this inner ear structure correlates with other archaic features, it strengthens the case for classifying them as a subspecies under Stringer's model, distinct not just in DNA, but in anatomy that hints at separate evolutionary pressures. Could this have made the Grotte Mandrin Neanderthals more susceptible to illness, further isolating them from the hybridized classic Neanderthals, such as those from La Chapelle, who might have seen them as frail outsiders? It's a small bone with a big story, whispering of a divided Neanderthal world. Here's a provocative twist. Did the classic Neanderthals, hybridized with modern humans, view these archaic Neanderthals as inferior? Imagine the classics, bigger, networked, wielding advanced tools, encountering a scruffy, isolated band. If classic Neanderthals carried modern human genes, they might have inherited our knack for othering. Modern humans often saw Neanderthals as brutish in early encounters. Did the sapienized classic Neanderthals see the Grotte Mandrin lot as savage throwbacks, unfit for their world? Evidence is indirect, but suggestive. The classic Neanderthals' Chattelperonian tools mimic early modern human orignation styles. The Grotte Mandrin Neronian tools, simpler and older, might have marked his group as backward, in the view of more advanced Neanderthals. These Neanderthals, stuck in their ways, could have been the barbarians at the gate, too different to join the fold. We have to ponder whether this relationship was peaceful. Since these two groups had noticeable differences, then they may have seen each other as enemies. If so, classic Neanderthals' advanced weaponry would be a factor. This also reframes Neanderthal disappearance. The classic Neanderthals, bolstered by modern human genes, held on longer, fading around 40,000 years ago as modern humans swamped Europe. Grotte Mandrin's archaic Neanderthals, rigid and isolated, might have faded out earlier. 42,000 years ago aligns with their last trace at Grotte Mandrin. Two groups, two fates, one hybridized and lingered, the other stagnated and vanished. This split also explains patchy fossil dates and tools. Neanderthals weren't one dying breed, but two, with different endings. Now, move your gaze north to Schöningen, Germany, where a mine's depths held a different story 200,000 years before these two Neanderthal lineages diverged. These aren't just stabbing sticks, they're well-balanced, tapered throwing weapons with broad bases and fire-hardened tips, sanded and carved from Norway spruce with meticulous attention to detail. Consider this. 300,000 years ago, early Neanderthals created elegantly designed throwing spears rather than crude stabbing spears. Not long ago, archaeologists thought this was a modern human innovation. The Schöningen spears take this intelligence to a new level. Archaeologists were astounded by the intricacy of these weapons, which were balanced like modern javelins, with the center of gravity a third of the way from the base, making them ideal for throwing. The spear's balance indicates that these early Neanderthals knew weight distribution. At Schöningen, the spears, carved with precision from carefully chosen Norway spruce, reveal an advanced arboreal knowledge that speaks to a deep intelligence. Indeed, the care in selecting the wood astounds the mind. Some say the Grotte Mandrin population is just an outlier, not a subspecies. Classic Neanderthals varied too, and one genome doesn't make an entire population. Morphology overlaps, and 50,000 years might not suffice for subspecies under Stringer's strictest lens. But the isolation's duration, genetic purity, and cultural drift outweigh this. One sample proves a lineage. More fossils could seal it. Among their many physical characteristics, the presence of red hair in certain Neanderthal populations piqued researchers' interest and provided new insights into these individuals' genetic diversity. The discovery of the MC1R gene mutation, which is associated with red hair and lighter skin in both modern humans and Neanderthals, has been found in 2 Neanderthal populations. The MC1R gene plays a key role in determining skin and hair pigmentation in humans by regulating the production of melanin. Variants of this gene associated with red hair, fair skin, and freckles have been found in both modern humans and Neanderthals. Studies suggest that some modern humans, particularly those of European descent, carry Neanderthal-derived MC1R variants due to interbreeding between Neanderthals and modern humans tens of thousands of years ago. In Neanderthals, these MC1R variants likely contributed to lighter skin and hair colors, as an adaptation to lower sunlight levels in northern regions. In modern humans, the presence of these Neanderthal-influenced MC1R variants is strongly linked to red hair, which is most common in northern and western Europe. Nevertheless, not all red hair in modern humans comes directly from Neanderthals. Some MC1R mutations arose independently in modern humans after the Neanderthal interbreeding event. The discovery of the MC1R gene mutation in Neanderthal remains has provided significant insight into Neanderthal genetic diversity. In modern humans, the MC1R gene regulates pigmentation, which affects the color of the hair and skin. Mutations in this gene in modern humans can lead to a reduction in melanin production, resulting in red hair and fair skin. Because this gene variant was also found in Neanderthals, it is likely that some of them shared similar characteristics. Indeed, during the DNA analysis of Neanderthal remains found in Spain, researchers discovered a previously unknown variant of the MC1R gene. This variant indicated reduced melanin production. This mutation most likely resulted in red hair and pale skin, advantageous in Neanderthals' low-light environments, such as regions with long, dark winters and dark primeval forests. However, this trait was not limited to a single geographic region, but rather spread throughout a variety of Neanderthal populations, as evidenced by the discovery of a gene variant that was very similar in Neanderthal remains discovered in both Spain and Italy. Research identified a specific MC1R variant in Neanderthal DNA that reduces the gene's activity, leading to less eumelanin, a dark pigment, and more pheomelanin, a red-yellow pigment, resulting in red or light hair. While this variant isn't identical to the most common red hair mutations in modern humans, it shows that Neanderthals and modern humans shared a genetic predisposition for lighter pigmentation. Today, roughly 2% of the genome in non-African modern humans comes from Neanderthals, and MC1R is one area where this ancestry can influence traits like red hair. In order to survive in cold and wooded environments, the Neanderthals adapted. It is possible that their pale skin, which is partially a result of a mutation in the MC1R gene, provided them with an advantage by enabling their babies to absorb more sunlight and produce vitamin D, which is essential for bone health, in an environment with limited sunlight. The story of the red-haired, freckled Neanderthals reveals the remarkable adaptability and resilience of these ancient humans. Despite the fact that their populations eventually were assimilated, their genetic legacy continues to be passed down to modern humans, demonstrating that our species and theirs have a common history. The Neanderthal story, though rooted in the distant past, speaks to the universal struggle for survival that has defined humanity from its earliest days. And though the Neanderthal race has long since vanished from the earth, their fossils remain, a silent witness to the savage and barbaric world that once was, and the men who fought to survive within it. Grotte Mandrin's archaic lineage, isolated, inbred, clinging to an older world, stands apart from the classic Neanderthals, a hybridized, widespread group blending with modern humans. Stringer's model crowns them subspecies, distinct, reproductively separate, yet kin. The classic Neanderthals might have looked down on their savage kin, a prehistoric xenophobia. As we unearth more, this tale of two Neanderthals reshapes their twilight, a dual legacy lost to time, but not to those with a curious mind. Thank you for watching our video. Before you go, please subscribe, share and check out our other video narratives of the lives of ancient mankind. Also, leave a comment. Your opinions and feedback are important. And please be safe out there in this savage world.